And she would, talk about whatever we might be talking about. She'd be talking about President Johnson, or when she had that flap with the National Institute of Arts or whatever it was, where they offered her an award, a monetary award for recognition of her work.
Mm-hmm.
And of course it almost killed her because she hadn't been offered membership.
Mm-hmm.
And she had lots of correspondence with lots of people about that. And I remember coming in on that visit and walking into the living room, and she was across the room from me and not looking too happy. But she was so sensitive and so perceptive and didn't miss anything. So I'm on the other side of the room, and I'm walking towards her, and she's sort of telling me what happened, that, she was offered this monetary award for her work, and just killing her.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I got an expression that, but I was ambivalent about this as to whether that was such a horrible thing to do to her. Oh, she didn't miss a thing. She could see that right away.
Mm-hmm.
That was inappropriate. I mean, she was not interested in seeing that, just what she thought was that was it, and I should, think the same thing. And so the subject was sort of dropped. I mean, she went on about it, but you couldn't mistake what her reaction was. I mean, she didn't miss a thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it all happened very quickly, and she saw that I was ambivalent, and I didn't necessarily see the point of this. I mean, why was she so upset?
Mm-hmm.
No, I wouldn't do. Just, a lot was going on at that time. I mean, in terms of civil rights.
Sure.
And President Johnson and the Vietnam War, and she was asked to sign one of these petitions against it, in which she refused to do.
Mm-hmm.
So there was always, and then she had that group from Africa come to Clayton. I mean, there was, and things were always hard, I mean, she just didn't have a lot of money. And so I think that put great stress on her, and also, she was sick.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she was sick for a long time, and looking back on it, I realized that illness over a long period of time, and sometimes that really got to her.
Sure.
And it was difficult. But when she was at ease, I mean, she had a wonderful sense of humor and was just full of life and full of gaiety. She had a wicked sense of humor. I mean, she really had a great sense of humor. And she was a great cook. And if she was in the mood, she'd go out and she'd whip up something. I remember one time very early on when I was down there, she made spoon bread. And I had a very bad, grainy, black and white photograph of her whipping up this thing of spoon bread, But she was a very good cook. And when we were in New York another time, just one other time when she came up to see the doctor, and we didn't stay. I went with her to stay in a friend's apartment. I've forgotten why we weren't in my apartment. We'd make shrimp, curried shrimp or something,
Mm-hmm.
And enjoy that. I mean, she had, real pleasure in things that are beautiful, or maybe even valuable. But it was not the monetary worth of anything. It was the pure sensuous, pleasure
Mm-hmm.
that she would take in things. And her relationship with objects was always very interesting to me. I remember one time watching her, and she was at her writing table in the living room, and she was talking about something. I don't know what it was. But she was talking, and I was listening, and she was walking by the table, and she picked up something. And she kept walking, and she was looking at this object, which belonged to her, as if she'd never seen it before. This is a new treasure. Now, what was this nice thing?
Mm-hmm.
And meanwhile, she was talking away about something else. And in that room, she had a way of looking at herself, particularly in that mirror, in that room, which has Chinese figures around
Mm-hmm.
the edge of it.
Right.
And she'd be talking whatever, and often walking. And she'd go towards that mirror, and I'd be wherever I was watching her. And then she'd look in that mirror with this just wonderful expression. I mean, looking very imperious, you know, as if, you know, I have conquered you. You know, I am, you know, I mean, a wonderful expression, you know, full of life and, you know, whatever has happened, I have, you know,
Mm-hmm.
come through. Lil was always reaching out, was always willing to participate.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't, she needed support. She was very vulnerable. You know, because she was very open, she was very vulnerable. And she was very open about her life, about what she thought, the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
But Lil certainly, she once said, you know, I know I make subtle demands on a relationship. Well, I guess so. You know, she really was very certain. She was the most ambivalent person I have ever met. But once she made up her mind, the commitment was rock solid. But even so, Lil needed support, always. You know, she needed her friends, she needed those who believed in her, and it meant a great deal to her. There's a story she told when she was about 4 years old, before she knew Marjorie White. Marjorie didn't even live in Jasper. I guess her best friend was Merle, a little girl Merle. And as she said, you know, they didn't have much. This story was told to her, of course, I don't think she remembered it. There's not much entertainment in small towns, so people make their own entertainment, and the children are a large part of this.
Mm-hmm.
So a group of people had gotten together, and I guess maybe in the school, and various children were getting up to recite verses or what have you. And Lil was to recite some little verse about, you know, a little girl with a curl in the middle of her forehead, some such verse. So she said, you know, I pressed on up there and turned around and delivered this little poem. And, of course, adults will laugh at children because they are so cute and they're so outrageous, you know. I mean, here she is full of vim and vigor and delivering this poem. And so they laughed. You know, people started laughing, understandably. And I guess she said to her parents, well, why is everybody laughing? Not even Merle could have done it any better. You know?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, she's always had that. I mean, I think even as a grown woman, which, of course, she's twice my age. And so I would sort of, you know, be a little astonished. But if you're that open, then you're vulnerable. And I think that's part of it. You know, she was always reaching forward, always, you know, ready to deal with the next whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
But then you pay a price for that. Like, you're vulnerable. And then you need people, you know. Well, like in her last letter to me, where she, you know, comments, you know, the support the confidence I had in her, and how much it meant. What was, you know, that was important to her.